Hi, everyone. Welcome to Mini Scroll, the daily internet culture podcast bringing you the biggest stories from social media, the creator economy, and the digital space every Monday through Thursday. I'm your host, Lauren Meisner, the founder of the youth digital media brand, Centennial World. Happy July 1st, everyone. This is so wild. Holy shit, I am so ready for July. I'm so ready for a new month. I am so ready to say goodbye to June. You guys know June was a really horrible month for me, so I am so ready to move on. But I hope you guys had a good weekend. I had a pretty good weekend. I worked a little bit on Saturday. I'm really going to try and find like a good balance because I've had to be working full, I would say like 6 to even 7 days a week, like full days, like 10, 12-hour days for the last few months. So I'm really hoping that in the next coming weeks, I can like figure out a better routine for myself and have more downtime. But I had a good Saturday night. Sean and I went to IKEA and we're starting to like get the wheels turning on how we're going to renovate our apartment. So we bought a place last year and it needs so much work. So much work. We need to do all 3 bathrooms and the kitchen. And we need to double glaze the windows and things like that. So anyways, it got me excited for that. And then we just like ended up buying some stuff at IKEA to start making our house feel a little bit more homey. We kind of got in the trap of like, okay, well, since we need to renovate, let's not buy any new furniture. Let's not like set it up nicely when we first moved in because we were like, whatever, we're going to end up, renovating and finding the style that we want and having to get new stuff that suits that style eventually anyways. But it's probably going to be at least another 6 months until we start renovating. So we decided to bite the bullet and be like, we need to set this place up a little bit more like cozy and, just like make it feel a bit more like ourselves. So anyways, we started doing that on the weekend and it made me feel very good. It made me feel a bit hopeful. It gave me something like a project to focus on that was not work related, which was nice because I haven't had that ever since I started Centennial. No, I'm joking. But like definitely not in the last probably like 12 months. So that was good. But yes, anyways, let's just get straight into the stories. So I have like 3-ish stories, like 2.5 stories for you guys. So the first story, of course, Clinton Kane has responded to Brooke Schofield's 15-part TikTok series. Also, I am sorry, I think I called her Brooke Schofield. I go back and forth every time I talk about her. I call her something different. It has been confirmed it is Brooke Schofield. In a PR piece for Rolling Stone, a rep for Clinton Kane responded to Brooke Schofield's accusations. So in case you missed it, last week, Clinton posted a TikTok to promote his new album in which he called his ex-girlfriend Brooke out for yapping about their relationship that ended 2 years ago. Brooke has a podcast, as we know, with her best friend Hannah Mojo, and she occasionally tells the story of her relationship with Clinton because it was just so bizarre. So she's talked about it on Canceled, their podcast. She's talked about it in other interviews. Like this was definitely not the first time that she has addressed her relationship with him. Brooke saw this TikTok that Clinton posted and was basically like, oh, you want to call me out for yapping? I'll give you yapping. And she posted this video series exposing him essentially as a liar. So she said that his public narrative that his whole family died, he said that his mother, brother, and father all died within the same year. That's been something he has been openly public about on different interviews and talked about how his music is like related or inspired by those events. She said that that was a lie, that his father was dead, but the rest of his family was alive. She found his mom on Facebook. She was very much alive. And she also said that he is faking being Australian, that he's actually from Brunei, but he puts on this fake Australian accent in the public eye. Although like not always, like sometimes he sounds American and sometimes he kind of sounds Australian. It's actually really hard to do an Australian accent. So yeah, his Australian accent's obviously not very good. And I'm sure any actual Australian people would be watching that being like, this person is not Australian. But anyway, she said he is not from Australia. He claims that he's from Perth, that he grew up in Perth, but like he's not. So in the Rolling Stone piece, like I said, a rep for him addressed all of this. So it says, quote, Clinton Kane and Brooke Schofield had a brief 3-month relationship over 2 years ago, reads a statement sent to Rolling Stone. Brooke's recent comments regarding Clinton are untrue. The rep says that the quote-unquote mother he referred to in the interview with Sang, as in Zach Sang, so the Zach Sang show he talked about his mother that died, was actually, quote, a very special mother-like figure in his teenage years who sadly passed, not his biological mother, as was assumed. And then the statement continues, quote, Clinton regrets the way this devastating news was communicated at the time. Clinton genuinely felt that he had lost an irreplaceable mother figure. Clinton was and largely is estranged from his immediate family. Okay, and then about him being Australian, Kane's rep says he lived in Australia, quote, for a time as a child and, quote, considers Australia to be home. He has never been disingenuous about this, the statement reads. Okay, and then the article ends by, quote, the public rehashing of these details is only an attempt to bring attention and focus on Brooke's podcast at the expense of tearing down another former boyfriend, a tactic she's become known for, reads the statement. In the years since this relationship took place, Clinton has moved forward and remains focused and committed on putting out new music. Okay, so then Brooke the next day was like, no, we're not doing this. So she responded to the article in her own TikTok series. So she posted 2 videos. The first one.
This part is like one of my favorite elements of the story, which is like the random side quest he decided to go on when people started finding things out, where he made up an imaginary new woman who was a mother figure to him, who was actually the one who had died, okay? Clinton genuinely felt like he had lost an irreplaceable mother figure, okay? This might hold up for the Zach Sang interview, but I was his girlfriend, okay? I was getting stories from like the time he was born to the present, okay? With names, all right? Which is how I looked his little mom up to begin with, okay? There was one mom, all right? It's the same mom I heard about every single day, and that is the one he killed off, and that is the one who is chilling in Brunei.
And then the second video she posted, she addressed the comment that she was doing all of this just for podcast listens.
If they had done any research at all, they would know that the canceled podcast listeners have known this lore all along, okay? I brought this to my TikTok audience for one reason and one reason only, okay? It is because that man called me a yapper. Canceled amasses more listeners in one singular week than Clinton Kane has in an entire year. I'm sorry.
So yes, obviously we are Team Brooke. The fact that they're trying to cover up Clinton's lies with more lies is so wild. This is such a bizarre PR tactic. I think it shows that it's quite possible he doesn't actually have a PR team helping him with this. Brooke said that in one of her videos. She was like, I don't think he has, she didn't say, I don't think he has a PR team. She said something along the lines of the fact that like, she's unclear if it's Clinton or if it's a PR team. And then somebody had commented on one of the videos saying something about his PR team. And she was like, with what money? Like, with what money is he paying this publicist? So she seems to think that it's probably just him pretending to have a publicist or pretending to have a representative, and it's actually him communicating this stuff, because it's a pretty wild tactic. I think anyone who works in media or PR would tell you in this situation, there was enough gray area and it was confusing enough that if they had just let Brooke post this series and Clinton had just not addressed it. I mean, he had just, like, Brooke has been talking about this for years on her podcast. Like we said, like he's never addressed it before. Obviously, this series got a lot of attention, but he could have just ignored it the way that he's maintained ignoring it for the last however many years. And I think it would have gone over better. I think people would have just like kind of not forgotten about it, because definitely his reputation's a bit tarnished, but I think it would have gone away. But them basically doubling down with more lies that are so obviously lies is actually just painting this as completely untrue. Whereas before, like his mother, his immediate family, like people hadn't come out and said like, he's not Australian, I'm his mom, I don't know why he's pretending that we're dead. You know, because he didn't have anyone in his life coming out and saying that consistently. Like I know she talked about a comment she saw on a video from the Zach Sang show where someone's like, I grew up with this person, he's not from Australia, and I saw his mom last week. I know she said she saw that comment, but besides from that, like he doesn't have any of the people that he's claiming that are dead. Like they're not coming forward and saying we're not dead. So there was always this gray area there where like his story could have been true. Now it's just so obvious that he's just been completely lying about so much this whole time. It's such a wild strategy. I cannot believe that they did this. Anyways, that's the latest on that. I don't think we will ever hear about this again. I think Clinton and his camp will never want to discuss this again. And I think Brooke is kind of like, I don't want this to veer in like tacky territory. So I think she's going to let it go too. Anyways, and the next story that I have for you guys is I wanted to give you some interesting insights that came out of VidCon 2024 this weekend. So obviously VidCon is not anywhere close to as relevant as it used to be probably 10, even 5 years ago. It's definitely lost some relevance. When it came back, I believe it was after it was shut down for COVID for a year or two. TikTok was the main sponsor. I think that was it. I think that's how that went down. But TikTok was the title sponsor for like a year or two there. Usually it's always YouTube, and it was YouTube again this year. Because when TikTok was the title sponsor, I don't know if you guys remember, but there was all that drama because they obviously set up, why did I say it like that? Set up all of these meet and greets for, creators or whatever. And it really highlighted the difference between a YouTuber's audience and a TikToker's audience and the engagement there. Because there was all these TikTokers that had hundreds of thousands of followers who set up meet and greets. Some of them had over 1 million followers, and their lines for their meet and greets were completely empty. Like nobody went to see them. And they were talking about this on TikTok, and this really highlighted to the industry, if you were paying attention, how impactful a YouTube subscriber is versus a TikTok follow, or just how cheap a TikTok follow can be, because they are cheap in comparison to other followers in a lot of ways. And so, yes, I think that was like a big wake-up call for the industry, and the event actually ended up going with YouTube again as the title sponsor after I think it was a bit derailed with TikTok as the title sponsor. So this year was YouTube again. And these are some insights that I got from Casey Lewis's Substack after school. So like I said, YouTube was the title sponsor. And at one of the conferences or panels, I guess, of the weekend, YouTube handed out their trends report. Well, I don't think they physically did. I think it was like on your phone. But, they gave out like a preview of their trends report that they publish every once in a while. So these are some interesting stats. 75% of Gen Z respondents self-identify as content creators, which is up by 25% since YouTube last published its trend reports. So that's really interesting. I mean, we've talked about it before, but like TikTok is so toxic, and the problem is that, and I believe that a lot of this is related to TikTok, but the problem is that you can post on Instagram and you're just like, yeah, like I'm a user. Like I post on Instagram and I use Instagram for my personal life. But if you're posting on TikTok, you're more likely to identify as a creator. If you're creating video content, you're more likely to identify as a creator. And the thing with Gen Z is like, you can't just not have TikTok. Like everybody has TikTok. It's like an Instagram, right? It is just kind of the status quo of that generation that you have TikTok, and you probably post TikToks every once in a while. I think it's more common for older generations like millennials, Gen X, to have TikTok and scroll TikTok, but to never post. I think that this stat is indicative of the fact that to engage with social media for youth generations, even as part of that generation yourself, just as a regular person, you have to be creating content, quote unquote. Like you have to be creating video content in a lot of ways to actually be engaging with your peers, whereas that's just never been the case before. Another stat is that 80% of fans use YouTube to consume the thing that they are a fan of at least weekly. I mean, we talk about this all the time on this podcast. Like YouTube is so powerful. It is still right up there with the number one platforms that Gen Z is obsessed with. There's such a misconception that Gen Z has a short attention span. That's just not the truth. Like if they are interested in a topic, they will watch a video essay. There's a reason why commentary creators, drama channels, video essays are so popular and have been so popular for years. It's because Gen Z is becoming the number one consumer of online content. And I'm not surprised at all that Gen Z is obsessed with YouTube, because we knew that. You and I knew this. Us on the podcast, we knew this. And then the last stat that I wanted to share is that 47% of Gen Z are part of a fandom that no one they know personally is also a part of. I relate to that so hard. I was part of the Trisha Paytas fandom. I didn't know a single person that even really knew who she was until like just a few years ago. And I was ride or die for her before it was cool to be. Okay. And I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing because she has been highly problematic and I'm very aware of that. Now, at VidCon, TikTok didn't have much of a presence this year, apparently. Neither did Snap or Pinterest. But Casey Lewis did say that TikTok, at the activations that they did have, were, quote, pushing longer videos a lot, which is super interesting. And I mean, it's unsurprising, right? They've been launching those features or like the longer video features or whatever over the past like year or two. So it's kind of no surprise. But I thought it was interesting to hear that TikTok, Snap, and Pinterest didn't have very big presences at VidCon. I think it does show that the relevance and the interest in VidCon is waning. I'm not sure where they should go. VidCon really started out as like a consumer event, and then over the years it has shifted more towards the middle. I wouldn't say it's a total industry event or a total consumer event anymore. It's definitely a mix, and I think sometimes that can work. But I don't know if it's working for VidCon. I think they would probably do better if they just like leaned all the way in to industry. Anyways, guys, that is it for Mini Scroll today. Thank you so much for listening. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe. It means so much. It helps me grow. It helps me keep going. I will talk to you guys tomorrow. All right, bye.